us for white well-being.
Yay!
Let's eat.
I'm trying to approve janitor, but his X is hopping around. Okay, I got that right. Janitor, how are you?
I'm doing great. I found maybe not unlikely, but I've never seen him swash before, and so I wanted to show you it.
Who's that?
He he made a post, I mean a tweet reply. His name's Max Power. Oh, okay. I can share the comments
Yes.
or the Jumbotron. Which do you think is better?
Put it in the comments first. Let's look at it.
And there are some small members in here that always use that meme since I think maybe Tree Godfather made it and he uses it as well a lot.
Anglo-Saxon and Robert, welcome. I think we can, let me kick off the space. Welcome to the Sunday edition, sorry, no, the Saturday edition of the Shade Tree White Wellbeing NWG space. We hold this space every day at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on X. We are a no white guilt community that meets to practice the concepts and lexicon developed by Jason Kuhner, Mr. No White Guilt himself. You can find him here on X as No White Guilt NWG. That's No White Guilt NWG. On YouTube and elsewhere as simply No White Guilt, and on the web at nowhiteguilt.org. We discuss a wide variety of topics of interest to white people and look for ways to apply solutions. I'm Hans, your host. We run pretty casual here, but I do ask that you raise your hand if you would like to jump in. Otherwise, I will call on speakers in turn for their thoughts. If you would like to opt into the conversation, just request the mic and I'll get you set up. We only ask that you comport yourself as much as possible to the Go Free lexicon and dialectic and act like a proper lady or gentleman of the West as applicable. Let's go. So, first of all, Biospirit.
Yeah, I was just looking at what Janitor had posted, and I recognized that account. And it's very nice that he's posting one of our memes. I think that was one that was created by the Blue Flame, if I'm correct. And that account Max Power is not always white positive. It's sometimes a little spurty and white negative, but you know, when somebody reposts our stuff, we clap, and we are happy that they are spreading the word. So thanks for pointing it out.
Thanks, Janitor. Janitor.
Well, yeah, I had the same feelings and saw like a lot of interaction on that one, and it was on a post that I wanted to see someone swashing on, and so I saw them and I was like, yay. Yep. Even though, yeah, what you brought up, to celebrate the don't like part, yeah, me too.
First of all, let me apologize. I I thought I would fit everything in, but I was mistaken. Um, so my the not girlfriend of my son invited me to her 21st birthday, and what I didn't realize was it is an hour's drive to the venue, and it looked like it was still in the city, but it was actually in the sticks. So what I didn't take into consideration is that even though it took an hour out, it doesn't necessarily take the same time back, because um, I was struggling to get an Uber, because the Uber has to drive out into the sticks out from the city. And this is where everything went wrong. So Uber this is an example of what they call in programming a leaky abstraction. Because Uber is a wonderful abstraction. You just get out your phone and you say, I am here and I want to get there. And then within a few minutes, the Uber arrives. But the problem is that abstraction, the implementation details start to leak through in the case where you are in the sticks, because then there are not Ubers all around the place. But other than that, it was quite a nice. I mean, I another thing was I thought they would be able to wrap up a birthday party in 4 hours. But by the time I left, they were just about to light the candles. So that's another lesson that I learned. Um, and the other thing, let me just say, if you are a white female and you are 21 years old, you don't need to fall out of your dress to get attention. I don't want to see the waves in your breasts every time you take a step. And I don't understand why mothers let their daughters out of the house like that. This is something I don't know if it's only here in South Africa, but you see that the mothers, it's like they are slave traders. They are putting their daughters on display. Um, and the younger daughter, she was dressed like $1 million. She was in a long black dress up to the neck, very stylish. And this is, this is what we like to see. Anyway, apologies for being late. um, it will probably not happen again. I don't know that many 21-year-olds. Bye, Spirit.
Well, I can remember my 21st birthday, and it was an all night affair. So I can understand that it went for a long, long time. And as far as Uber, I'm actually surprised that you guys have Uber in South Africa, because I wouldn't think that it would be like safe enough um, to take it. But perhaps where you are, it's okay. I remember when I was in Florida several years ago, and we tried to do Uber, and we found the same thing. We were too far out of the city center for anyone to be interested to come and get us. So we had to abandon that plan, and then uh, hire like a dedicated uh, driver uh, from a different kind of service to drive us around while we were in that city. So yeah, it doesn't always work, does it? It's a great idea, but it has its flaws.
Well, if so, the Uber drivers here have plenty of. I mean, once in a while, I I prompt them a bit, and everyone I've spoken to has been a victim of violent crime. Um, the last one, he said there were three warning signs he ignored. It was a time of night, it was a first time user, and it was El Dorado Park, which is a non white neighborhood. And he said these were all red flags, and he wasn't thinking. And then he was almost killed. Um, um, and this is it is, yes. And but what's really to me galling and despicably anti-white. Uber penalizes the drivers if they deny rides from non-white neighborhoods, which is just, it is so wrong. Um, and this shows you how anti-whites don't care about the lives of non-whites, because most of these Uber drivers are non-white, but they are being forced by the algorithm to put their lives on the line if they want to keep making money. It's just another example, and it's all over the place. You can you once you know what to look for, you'll see that anti-whites don't care about non-whites. They just use them as a convenient pretext when it's useful to victimize us. Yeah, so Uber, I mean, it is dangerous, and but of course, in the white neighborhoods, I asked the one, I asked him, and what about the neighborhood that I'm in? He said, no problem, no problem. Yeah, so everyone knows what's going on. No one wants to talk about it. But mm, I'm going to, I think, do something a bit different today, which is we are going to talk about four men of the West, because we can do bulk celebrations because we'll never run out. So I'm going to put an image into, let me share it on in the Jumbotron, and I'm going to take a quick poll. Okay, I shared it in the Jumbotron. You see if it comes up. Come to XX. X is on a go slow. You get out and in. Jumbotron is not updating. I'm going to try and share again. Okay. Oh, did I share it twice now? Ah, Twitter. And now I'm going to have to delete one of them. Okay. So without cheating, does any of those names sound familiar? I think I messed up the Jumbotron. Can anyone um, see the thing? Thumbs up if anyone can see
Yeah, I
the.
can see the images.
Okay, because I can't click on it now. Okay, just so these are four men. They were involved. Two of them, Banting and McLeod, were given the Nobel Prize for their work in the discovery and extraction of insulin. The other two, so Banting shared his Nobel Prize with his assistant Best, and McLeod shared his Nobel Prize with Collip. But the story starts with Banting. Um, Banting. Oh, you probably know about Banting from because William Banting was a relative um, of Banting. Let me just check. Of Frederick Banting, who invented a weight loss diet in 1864, known as Banting. This was entered into the Oxford Dictionary. So this is, I mean, I knew about this word, but I didn't. But of course, Frederick Banting, who got the Nobel Prize for insulin, his work on insulin, I didn't know about that name. So, born on a farm in 1891 in Ontario, youngest of five, he had an inferiority complex as a child. He was struggling in school. Spelling was a big challenge. So it was a whole struggle, and it's really when I read his story, it's this boy who just he's always the last to be picked. He's always he's the omega. He's the omega of the group. He's the loser. Um, so, but he relates that one day um, he stopped on the way home to watch two men shingling a roof, and um, then the scaffolding broke, and both of them were badly hurt. So Fred ran for the doctor, and he writes in his autobiography, "I watched every movement of those skillful hands as he examined the injured men and tended to cuts, bruises, and broken bones. Both men recovered. In those tense minutes, I thought that the greatest service in life is that of the medical profession. From that day, it was my greatest ambition to be a doctor." And this goes back, yesterday we talked about Wilhelm Richard Wagner and how he was inspired by an opera he watched, and by at the age of 15, I think, he watched Beethoven's seventh and his ninth symphonies, and how he was inspired to be a composer, and but not only a composer, multiple disciplines in the music industry. And this is something that I maintain, that if boys are get their passion while they are young, while they are still going through puberty, that passion gets frozen in, and it's with them for the rest of their lives. And I thought about another instance of that. If you read the book Crucible, Jason Jason's story, you see the same thing there. It was in that tender years that his passion um, for the well-being of his people and fighting for a future for our children, when that was frozen into his psyche, and decades later he has the same fire, um, and I think that is because of the time that that those ideas formed. So let me just get grab here. Let me. Okay, so university was much of the same. Um, his his principal at the school made a strange comment. He said something like, "He wasn't the one that we ever thought fame would settle on his shoulders. He was just a white boy. He was a right boy." Um, and it seems like he implied that he was just a normal white boy, but he kept trying, because he failed quite a few times at school, repeated that in university, He then when World War One, Julia.
Well, I was gonna say two things. One was that, yeah, I agree about things getting frozen in during formative ages. The same thing happened to me with regards to intactivism, i.e., fighting against the circumcision, the genital mutilation of unconsenting minors. And the other thing was, I'm wondering if this guy had some sort of dyslexia or something like that, that made him struggle so much with school. Um, a lot of highly intelligent, neurodivergent people do have idiosyncrasies like that. Like I suspect I have like a mild auditory processing disorder. So and I've seen brilliant people with dyslexia, so it wouldn't surprise me.
You know, Julia, I don't know how you do it, but I think you put your finger on the thing, because it's not in my notes, but it's said that when he dropped his language courses at university, he immediately moved up to a B average. So I think you are onto something. um, so World War One broke out, anti-white war one, and his medical training was accelerated, as you would expect when a country gets on a war footing. You're not crossing the T's and dotting the I's anymore. And he qualified as a doctor in the Canadian Army Medical Corps. He was awarded the Military Cross owing to his exceptional bravery while attending the wounded under fire. He was a bomb exploded and he was wounded with shrapnel. So, but that also led to his discharge. And back at home, he was unable to gain a position at a hospital. He tried a medical practice that failed, maybe because he couldn't collect the money from because he couldn't read very well. But he finally got a position at the Toronto University teaching. Um, so definitely not a career arc that you expect from one of our great men of the West. But during his tenure while he was a teacher at this university, he read an article um, that talked about research by Sharpie, Schaefer, and others that suggested that diabetes was caused by a hormone secreted by the islets of Langerhans. Now, diabetes wasn't on his radar. But this article interested him. Schaefer is the one who named the hormone secreted by Langerhans islets as insulin. But all attempts to extract the hormone failed. Later, in 1920, another article was published that talked about the experimental closure of the pancreatic duct that caused a deterioration of the pancreatic cells that secrete trypsin, which breaks down insulin. And Banting realized that this may be a mechanism where you could kill off the part of the pancreas that degrades the insulin, and then you should be able to extract the insulin. So he discussed this approach with John McLeod, which was the professor of physiology at the University of Toronto. And John McLeod wasn't convinced, but he uh, he decided he's going to take a long shot, and he appointed. Um, he gave a small piece of his laboratory to um, to Banting, and there was a graduate student um, that was his assistant, and he assigned this graduate student. The graduate student's name was Charles Best. He assigned him to Banting to work on this problem. Now they had various failures and um, limited success, but and then they did find success with one of their patients, one of their test patients. So it was then very promising. And what happened was, so Banting was going to present this experimental results at a conference, but he clamped up so badly that he couldn't present well, and so the audience was unimpressed, not convinced. Then McLeod, he tried to save the um, the matter, and he took over the mic and he spoke his piece. And Banting saw this as an attempt to um, to steal credit. So the relationship between Banting and his basically his manager, his superior, deteriorated to the extent that McLeod appointed another man, James Collip, to try and extract insulin. So this was a competitive environment um, where the two teams, McLeod and Collip and um, Banting and Best, competed um, to to be the first to extract insulin successfully. Now, at some point, Collip claimed to find the golden or the key to success, and he told Banting and Best that he's not going to share because he's only going to share to McLeod, and it almost broke out in a fist fight. But eventually, they did resolve their differences and managed to extract a very pure form of insulin, which together they administered this to a group of test patients. And it's incredible the difference it made. One of the test patients was a boy. He was um, in I think 3 months he doubled his weight. In about 3 months, he almost doubled his weight when he went on insulin treatment. So this was a radical improvement. In that time, in 1900, if a child was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, the recommended approach was to go on a starvation diet, a very low calorie diet that will eventually lead to the child's death. But the alternative was that if they don't do that, the children would go into a coma, and that out of which they won't come out of. Now, their test patients, some of their test patients were in a coma. They were waiting to die, and they woke up from their coma from one insulin injection. So it was such a world-shaking solution that everyone wanted it. And you can think about how strong, how much of your resources you will commit if it means your child will live versus your child will not see Christmas. So there was enormous pressure, but the problem was the university, of course, was not geared to mass produce the stuff. They used their first experiments was with dogs, and then they used other animals like pigs. So this was now a commercial venture, and they handed over the commercial venture to another company. And in the first year, I think they produced something like 250,000 um, um, units of insulin. And the whole reason why I got onto insulin was because I remember when I read the Google book, they talked about where their money comes from. And they talked about the fact that you would think, because the most expensive search word to buy a click from is insulin. I think it was something ridiculous like $20. If you buy $20 for a click on the insulin. But in the book they say that that's a very tiny amount of money that they get from these expensive AdWords. They make almost all of their money on the long tail of the AdWords that costs almost nothing. But that's where I got the idea for insulin. And lo and behold, yes. And the fact that the look, when a team works together, the assumption is also always that the team lead is the one who Banting was the lead on the team, and you never know what the contribution was of the other team member. But of course, Banting knew, and that's why he shared his Nobel Prize. And but the logical thing would be for if you want to be fair, is to go and interview the people and find out. So I don't know um, why they awarded initially to Banting and McLeod, and they then shared their Nobel prizes. But that was good of them to do that, and it's just um, another thing about the Western biospirit is that fair play is a Western norm. We um, we we like meritocracy, um, and that's something I think that is not shared with all other groups. But yes, this was really inspiring for me. Once again, this person is not. This is typically how many white males today are in the position of this um, Banting. He's just failing all the time. But what's the difference is he keeps trying, and the other difference is he was really passionate about being a doctor, about helping people. Now, not specifically about diabetes, but also the lateral thinking. Years apart, he reads these articles and then he makes a connection. Wait, um, I can. This is where I can add value. And the other thing is, it's one thing to have the idea, but the difference is to actually go and do it. And he went and did it. And yes, it's just a great lesson. It's another great lesson that you don't need to be born with all 20 talents. You can have one talent and and blow right past your more talented rivals. Um, and that happened. That happens all the time. So that's it for Banting and Co. Frederick Banting, Charles Best, his assistant, John McLeod, the boss, and James Collip, the pretender, let's call him that. But all of them contributed, and all of them are equal partners in my mind. What a great story. I mean, this is one of those things where it's inconceivable the amount of um, the amount of happiness, the amount of tragedy that was avoided, and the amount of happiness this caused. And this is now a problem that we see this now as an inconvenience. It's no longer this. I mean, it is still. Let's not diminish it. The diabetes is still. You are going to have a hard time, but it's not. It's not at. You know, you can live. You can live a good life, even if you were diagnosed with type 1 diabetes as a child. And thanks to these great men of the West. There's another wrinkle to the story, and this is that multiple other people in the West, in Europe, were at the point, at the cusp of making these advances, but the war destroyed that. Um, and this is another thing. We see the lives the war destroys, but those lives were busy doing things. You know, we always think in terms of, well, a war, the best people bubble to the top, so they will still be successful. They won't die in front of cannons. But that's not how real life works. In a war situation, you still have the people who can market themselves and get to the top. And you still have the vast amount of people that are just chewed up and spit out. So, yes, luckily, he survived. But because think about that shrapnel. If that shrapnel lodged in his head, maybe we would still have a problem with insulin today. So, yes, 4 great men of the West. It's a bulk celebration today because we won't run out. Don't worry. um, Bias, but any comments?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I didn't know the names of any of the four, and which is odd because I've had a lot of diabetics in my life, so they just always seem to gravitate towards me. um, so I'm quite well aware of dealing with people who are diabetic. Um, and I was thinking about how before the insulin was invented or produced, how you were saying how uh, dreadful it was for people. And in my hobby of genealogy, I come across it every once in a while. I'm looking at a death certificate from the 1800s, and it lists diabetes as the cause of death, and you wonder how how they even made it to early adulthood, and what what they must have had to go through, and the suffering that went along with it.
Bias Spirit,
As you said now, yes.
you are roboting quite badly.
Oh, that's terrible.
Now it's fine
Well,
again. Now it's fine.
well, as I was saying, it was just that the diabetes now is so manageable, and they've even created these devices where the device can be implanted, and it regulates your blood sugar for you, which is really quite amazing. And all sorts of things that you can put on your skin that will um, monitor your blood sugar level at all times and let you know when it's going low or it's going high, and all of these things. So the technology has become really quite amazing. And the better that it's regulated, the fewer problems that you have as you get older. One of my uncles had diabetes, and he unfortunately went blind because of um, the way that it the diabetes takes a toll on your body when you have wild swings in your blood sugar, and one of the things that can be is that happens is blindness. And then he died relatively young, in his 60s. But so anyway, that's the end of my thing about that. But wonderful men of the West that brought us much better living.
And they look like a bunch of chads. Three Godfather.
Outstanding choice for Men of the West. Very personal to me, as you know, being diabetic myself. I get to live a really normal life, especially thanks to technology today. I have a Dexcom sensor in one arm that feeds an Omnipod in the other, and it's a positive loop that just feeds itself. It feeds the sugar reading into my phone, and then my phone converts it to data to tell it how much insulin to give. And I get to have an A1C of a normal person because, as we know, high sugars over time causes blindness. It makes wounds not heal fast. Lots of internal injuries. So, outstanding guys. I wouldn't be alive. We probably wouldn't be having this face not for these men. So when I heard this topic come up, I had to jump in. But thank you very much, Hans. Excellent, excellent choice. Hundreds and thousands of lives saved by the work of these men.
Yes, it's staggering to read how they had to ramp up production because the demand was just absolute. And you can think about the normal rules of um, of the free market doesn't apply if the thing that you have to buy is going to save your child's life. So this is just and if you have enough, you don't need any more. It's not like um, you can always buy another Ferrari. If you have enough insulin, you don't need any more. But if you don't have enough, someone dies. So it's one of those things where it's the normal rules of the free market doesn't work anymore, and the demand was so absolute, the pressure was so enormous that they just had to, you know, to get that going very fast because literally I think people died waiting for, because they couldn't get that fast enough. Um, Janitor.
Um, I know some people with diabetes, but uh, I didn't know that you could even share a Nobel Prize.
Well, now you know, and if you get the Nobel Prize, please remember me. Anyway, let's go to the next point in the Jumbotron. So I think most of you probably know about this, the Manchester attack, and everyone is relieved. Of course, everyone in the white sympathetic sphere is probably enormously relieved that this wasn't a white male. And why are we relieved? We are relieved because the content creators, the leaders who must defend us, don't know how to do it. So if it's a white male, they just say, well, it happens. And if it's a non-white male, they say, look, non-whites are bad. But the non-whites are bad doesn't work if it's a white male. So, and what do we know of the anti-white narrative? The moment that the crime supports the anti-white narrative, it's written in the sky for everyone to see. When it's not, like in this case, even though we get to see it on X, do you think the tens of millions of white people who watch CNN or The Guardian are going to see this? I don't think so. So just in short, yes, think about the fact that let's compare it to the murder of Irina Zaritsky. Of course, in that case, the murderer himself was an anti-white monster. But everyone involved who put that monster behind her with a knife in his hand was anti-white. The system is anti-white. The white erasure of our Western norms. We know that crime disappears when we start enforcing norms because criminals want to live. And when the lesson is that they very quickly stop living if they do these horrible things, then they find other things to do. But of course, this may not be the case for this specific terrorist, but this specific terrorist wouldn't be here without anti-whiteism, without white erasure. So, and no one's talking about it like this, except our community. Janitor.
Well, it's something kind of like the it's not about left versus right. And it's more like the dial back time. And there's less anti-whiteism. But also, I did just open my Twitter and I saw someone posting they're not left wing, they're anti-white, but it went away before I could see it. So I want the post back so I can take a look at it.
Yes, what you are referring to is I often make the comment that if you dial back time, then what goes down? It's crime, because we had less anti-whiteism, we had more Western standards, and that meant when everyone understands that there's one standard for everyone, and that ignoring it leads to consequences, very swiftly, then that standard tends to be respected. And that was the case 100 years ago. It's not the case anymore, and it's not the case because of anti-whiteism. But yes, so it's of course terrible. This was not only an anti-Jewish terrorist; he was definitely anti-white. I think he was uh, um, on released on bail for a rape charge. So this is just one of these horrible creatures that the anti-whites invite in, and their whole right to exist is to cause white erasure and victimization of Western kind. That's why he's here for. Now, it misfired in this instance, but anti-whites don't care about non-whites. We see that all the time. Janitor.
I saw while trying to find that post I said I just lost Daniel Concanon, he ratioed Elon Musk with a thing about the ADL and Jewish people being white, and then well, Blue Flame tried to swash on there, but he got like 600 views, so it's kind of nice. Yeah, so Daniel Concani got like 12,000 views. I mean, 12,000 likes, and Elon Musk got like 2,500 likes. And maybe I can like share it to the comments.
Please do. I'm going to put the next thing in the Jumbotron. Okay, so far left of the Jumbotron, Pope Leo the 14th blesses a block of ice in the name of the fight against climate change. Now, we understand that climate change is used as a pretext to victimize Western nations, as a pretext to victimize the white taxpayer. But what is he not doing? He's not talking about the evil of our age, anti-whiteism. He's not talking about white males being white erased from work, from admissions. So this Pope is, like every other Pope in recent history, anti-white. And people who think that it's just the Pope, it's the whole institution. It's our churches were defeated. They were some of the first institutions to be defeated by anti-whiteism. And now they promulgate it, they preach it from the pulpit. I mean, the Archbishop of Canterbury is an anti-white woman now. I don't know, she replaced that very irritating Archbishop before her, but she looks even worse. She looks like he's like the witch mother of the Archbishop that was ousted. Yes, so it's all bad all the time, and we know where the corruption is. And it's not something that you can just inject some insulin or some penicillin in. Some of these people are beyond human intervention, and we just need to get them out of our civilization where they can corrupt themselves, on build their own little private hell in some non-white country. Yes, any comments about our, I don't know if anyone's Catholic here, but by spirit.
Yeah, I'm not Catholic, but I I was laughing quite a bit about the blessing of the block of ice. Just bizarre stuff. But this is what we get when the climate hoax is part of the anti-white narrative. It's part of anti-whiteism. It's a subset of it, and this is what we get: is this kind of bizarreness where rather than caring about the people, he's concerned about a block of ice and the fight against something that isn't even happening. So the Catholic Church is this way. All the rest of the denominations are this way, with very few exceptions, if any. and because everybody is polluted by anti-whiteism. So, of course, that's what you get more of. I was listening to a podcast this morning, and it was Harmeet. I can't remember her last name, Indian name. She's in the DOJ of the Trump administration, and she was talking about how they're working to get rid of the what we would call the anti-white professors and instructors in the universities and in the bureaucracy of the universities. But she said that there are so few, and in her terminology, she's using right and left, but there are so few available people who are of the university professor grade of education who could step in and give a balancing to the perspectives in universities that they just don't exist because people have stopped. People with those viewpoints or way of thinking, or people who are not anti-white, have stopped going into that field. So you can't just say, well, we're going to hire a bunch of people who are white positive, or in their respect, they were going to say Republican or leaning right. You can't find them because they don't exist. And it's the same thing here in the church. So the people who are the priests, the people who are the pastors, come out of these teaching unions, universities that are religious in their what they teach, and everyone who goes through them, through these institutions, comes out, if not totally anti-white, at least 99.9% anti-white, and you can't get around that. So even if you wanted to, and you had some kind of mechanism to say, we don't want this, we want people who are white positive, they're not just in the wings waiting to come and start talking at your church, because they don't exist. You could have someone like Jason come and give a pretty good sermon, but there aren't a whole lot of people like Jason out there. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts on that.
Yes, in other words, it's not only that they are white erasing the institution, it's that good people self-select themselves out. Yes, that's definitely also a factor. Yeah, I can see that. Although in my immediate circle, the casualties are all people who were just they were just white erased. But I can see how you would realize. I mean, we are doing it already, because I'm telling every young white male, you need to get into. I'm telling them, forget about living your dream, because the reality is that you need to consider that you are a white male. So see how you can shape your dream to fit inside that reality, because there are certain industries that just have too many gates and too many gatekeepers, where you are just going to waste 10 years of your life and then do something else. And an example of that is one of the friends of my brother-in-law, he was really dead set on um, um, becoming, I think it was physiology. There are certain medical industries that are now totally closed off. I don't know why. And what happened was he had very good scores. He wasn't um, he wasn't selected. He didn't get admission into the medical faculty. He went and got a 3-year degree in biochemistry and other medical related subjects. He majored in biochemistry and microbiology. Applied again, was rejected again. And then he decided, well, okay, let me be a pharmacist then. So this was his passion. He would have been world class in that discipline. He was denied twice, and he was a top performer. Now he's doing something that he didn't really want to do. It's now a thing of making money, and this is the reality of for our young white men. And this is why I say, um, don't forget about your dream, but there's a reality that's not going away, and you need to consider that. By spirit.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I know a lot of people who are university teachers, and everyone has noticed that white men are suddenly, it seems, as they say, suddenly, they've all started to notice that white men are not in college anymore. And uh, people are starting to say, what's going on? What's happening? I don't understand this. Well, it's exactly why, because of what you just said, Hans, they're being systematically eliminated out of the pool, even though they have the grades, they have the ability, they have the intuition, and want to the drive to do it. They're being selected out for non-whites. They're being selected out for anyone from outside of the country who will pay more and get more money into the school. And so they've gotten the message, just like you've been giving them the message, and the message is, why bother? And they're doing other things. And who wouldn't? I mean, if you're smart enough to figure out that the path that you want to go down is closed to you, then you take a different path. Because who wants to um, make a huge investment in a career and then have it be a bust? Nobody. So yeah.
Another point that I realized just now, I'm lead of an engineering team, and neither one of us was trained in computer science. We all came from other disciplines because of white erasure, basically. This was the job that we fell into, and because this is the discipline that is very hard to white erase. Um, Even if you look at what Indians do, there's a level of things that the Indians cannot just, they just cannot do. They love clicky clicky draggy droppy, but when they have to understand the system and see the world through the processor's eyes, they are nowhere. And you see that with the top coder competitions. There's every year there's a top coder SRM final at Las Vegas. SRM stands for single round match, and you can look at the top coder finalists, It's white men or Chinese, white or Chinese. That's the only people who make the finals. So despite, and let me tell you, Indians, their participation in Top Coder is huge. I think they are the biggest group by far participating, and they're just not getting there. So this idea that they are so good at programming. Well, what's happening is when you advertise for a programming position in India, one time they got 3 million. They got 3 million resumes. This is why, you know. So if you have 3 million resumes, there's probably some good ones in there. Janitor.
My thought about the climate change is where it connects to white flight, because the cities are hunting grounds and those are capable to, have the infrastructure, but then you have the sprawl of going into the encroachment of nature and the drought, and of rivers, the drying of rivers and water and nature. And so um I think that's just my thought.
Slots.
I wanted to mention anecdote here is that about an example of white erasure, which was obvious to me, but I don't think anyone else mentioned, not in the community, but in real life among my circle, was that I found out that my manager, who started at the bottom before me, and with me, they were at the same level as me where I currently work. He had a degree to do doctor's work, and he's a white man, and he was not doing doctor's work. And I just thought, well, yeah, obviously that's white erasure. If you have a degree and you're able to do that work and you're not doing it, you're doing this, less than ideal job. That's what's happening. And he got promoted up. He's now my manager, but uh, that's just an example, another example of white erasure. And I don't buy, regarding what Biospirit was saying, I don't buy this excuse about there not being anyone who's white positive available to fill positions. It sounds like an excuse that they're making. If there is, I mean, they have those anti-white programs and trainings that they put on all the time. And if they're not able to recruit someone, those programs, those trainings should be adjusted. They should be saying, we can't recruit someone, but we have new training to stop anti-whiteism as a fallback, and instruct them to stop being anti-white. But they don't do that. And there is to some degree, an issue with there being no consultancies available to teach them how to not be anti-white, or teach them how to be white positive, or not tread on anti-whiteism. I was thinking possibly that I might contact Brant Danger about it, but him transforming his School of the West into a double business there, to have a consultancy arm and also have a school arm, instead of just the one, if possible. I know that Jason would be excellent to have consult with universities, but creating some kind of course material, or just those slideshows, those DEI anti-white trainings. They just put up a slideshow and they teach you how to be anti-white, and there could be something else as an alternative that they hire and they actually use. So
Slots, you put my mind now. I'm thinking laterally now. So I'd like to get people's opinion. So in South Africa, there are plenty of consultation firms who help you get your BEE certification. Now, the BEE certification is the white erasure, level of white erasure that will allow you to do various things like being eligible for tendering, for submitting a tender for government work. But what I'm thinking is, um, would it be, uh, would it be, um, would it be white positive if you have a consultation business that helped people to get BEE certified with the minimum amount of white erasure and do it through a white positive lens? And the white positive lens is, look, your business, to save your business, we have to do comply to this anti-white law, and here's the minimum amount of damage you can do to Western kind in order to survive as a business. Would that be white positive, or would that be playing, um, measuring yourself by the anti-white yardstick and creating a future where there is no future for white children? By spirit.
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, it could be something in the short term that could jump in and be in the already established way of things as they're being done. Of course, what we would like to see is something completely different, where as you say, the BEE, and here the DEI, and basically all of the anti-white program stuff that goes on in organizations and um, industry and everywhere. Um, we want that to be gone, and we would like there to be a different kind of training, which would be a white positive certification training, so that people would have to certify that they're not being anti-white. I think that's a lovely idea, and that really appeals to me. But I can see your point, Hans, that in the meantime, maybe, to get our foot in the door, would be to make it some part of making the current anti-white stuff not quite so anti-white, perhaps.
Look, the real reason, of not the real reason, but the larger reason is, currently what these consultation firms do is they market it as a good thing. So they're doing psychological damage. And what I'm thinking of, even if you just have a consultation firm that markets this as this is evil, and we're going to help you to, in an anti-white environment, do the least amount of damage to white people. Because this is now, you're taking a totally different moral position than what is taken currently, because currently it's dehumanizing to white people. I mean, I got a quote from a local service provider, a small business, and they attached their BEE certification at the bottom of the email, which is, and I answered them back, I'm white, you're white, and you're telling me that you are proud of implementing white erasure. Never send that, never talk to me again. Crazy that because this is in the, they're so used to the anti-white morality that they think everyone's fine with it. And but here's the other thing: if you have a consultation firm that puts the moral position out there that we're going to do the least amount of anti-whiteism, and we're going to show you how you can run a business without white erasure. And there are ways to do that. Basically, because the way the anti-white regime targets your business is through things like sales volume, um, turnover. So if you can deconstruct your business into small units, um, you know, then that's a way um, to avoid coming into the scope of BEE. Now, for certain um, companies, it will not be feasible because they are too chunky. But so I think the bigger idea is to get it out there that this is disgusting what these BEE consultation firms are doing. They are vehemently anti-white, and let's move the conversation to a point where we're going to limit the evil, and the evil is anti-whiteism. Janitor.
I think how you already thinking is great because you had said the harm to Western kind, and that is the white positive part because you're showing without it, it would be better, and that's what makes it white positive because you're saying it's evil and this is how it harms Western kind, and so then you're basically saying you are, yeah, you're saying you are victimized by it, and um rather than like wish list something that's not going to happen, it's very effective to be able to say um it's not harmful for anti-whiteism, but you as white people are definitely harmed by this.
I'm thinking of the slogan. Your slogan can be um, evil is evil even if it's legal. Because you're going to um, show your customers how to comply with the law. You're not going to do anything illegal. They won't be able to get at you from that angle. And so that's something that I would like to see. And I mean, I'm not in that business, but I'll think about people who are. Um, but yes, that's something that I'm thinking about. I just want to go back to the Pope and his block of ice. Slots.
Sorry about that. I just got the idea that I don't know if having the being an agency that directly authorizes or teaches the BEE would be something that would succeed or not. I'm not familiar with the actual business or anything, or the system there, or how uh, permitting they are on modifications to their anti-white ideology. Um, but just another idea is, instead of consulting the businesses on BEE, you can consult other BEE institutions. Just a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think a few days ago I unsubscribed from one of those type of firms because it was just disgusting, the emails that they sent me. And I repeatedly told them that this is evil what they are doing. Stop doing it. And eventually I just unsubscribed. So I think the people who are doing that kind of work, I think they made a deal with the devil. I, but yes, that is, of course, if you can get one of those, instead of creating your own firm, if you can just, this is, um, one of the ways that's most effective of the Go Free method is to change the underlying morality of the institution, and in that way almost capture it. So yes, that would be, of course, the most effective way forward. It means you're not going to you're not going to waste any resources. Um, yeah, something to. I mean, I will. This specific firm, though, they are. I maybe I should subscribe again. But yes, thanks for that. So I just want to mention a few things about the Pope and his block of ice. So the first thing is, of course, is inside the anti-white narrative. And in the anti-white narrative, whites are responsible for industrialization. Whites are causing all this harm, and this is why we are the ones who need to be victimized because of it. But the other part is, what are they doing? They are exploiting the biospirit of Western kind, because who is concerned about the environment and about the fauna and the flora? This will never work with any other group. They will just, "Hmm, interesting. Thanks for letting us know." They would not care. um, they are exploiting the fact that we feel a connection with nature and we really want to leave the world a better place. Julia,
The hell? There we go. Hi. So a little bit of an issue with the mic there. I just wanted to say regarding the people who work for very anti-white companies, I think there are just so many people who are almost like soulless, like they just don't care about anything. They're completely um, like embedded in nihilism and apathy, and they barely notice like anything going on around them. They're on autopilot. They're just like surviving. I think this is a large chunk of the population, and they just do whatever the social morality is. So I mean, it is evil what they do it, but what they do, the fact that they don't fight it, but it's the evil in the way of not standing up. It's the evil of apathy and nihilism and yeah, neglecting an obvious evil.
also, I think in the case where this white personal assistant, this young woman who sent me this email, and is a white business owner, and she sent me this email with a footer that brags about white erasure. I think she was probably stunned that someone would send her a nasty email for a generic footer. But this is the kind of thing, how we change the conversation. Because I think she wasn't even aware she's doing it. She just wants to get through a day. But now there's a moral dimension to that they need to consider once people like us are starting to object. Slots.
There was a new term I kind of came up with to describe, instead of villainy signaling, even though that's sometimes what it is, there's another kind of idea, which is preening. So it's anti-white preening. It's like a bird preening their own feathers. And that's another term or concept I came up with, is just that they're anti-white preening.
I like that. The only thing is, preening has quite a good connotation. So I'll think about that. How, yeah. Um, Julia,
Well, preening made me think of peacocking. And while I do like peacocks, peacocking already has a slightly negative connotation. So that might be a better term to use.
Thank you, Julio. Yes, peacocking. um, okay, back to our Pope, our current Pope. So he's exploiting the biospirit of Western kind. We care about our environment. Um, in fact, you feel it when you have a pristine neighborhood and there's a piece of litter that flutters across the street. You feel it. You feel the need to go and pick that up. Um, you feel, when th- what's that movie? But one of the movies, white people pay a lot of money to be able to go to a restaurant where they eat endangered species, which is total inversion. We are the last people who would do things like that. But yes, so the Pope is exploiting, or the whole climate movement is exploiting not only the climate movement, the whole environmental movement is exploiting the biospirit of Western kind. No one else would care. If the West falls, the whales would just be farmed out. No one would no one would object to that. There won't be any whales left. Um, the Chinese, the whales are not here because the Chinese objected to their extinction. It's all us. Now, another aspect of this ice kissing of the Pope is white erasure. Now, you may think, um, burn some rubber, thinking, how's that possible? Well, think about the scientific method and how it was a super weapon of Western civilization. It allowed us to iterate very quickly to the truth by allowing critical discussion. That's gone now. Anyone in science who sticks his neck out loses his head, um, because academia is, um, I would say, connected both to the anti-white regime, the power structure of the anti-white government, and to the anti-white corporates who sponsor the research. And also not to forget about the billionaires who donate to these organizations. So they keep inside a narrow um, um, lane, and they make sure they don't step out of that. So it's wide erasure of our standards. The scientific method doesn't apply anymore. It only applies in limited circumstances. Critical discussion is not encouraged. Critical discussion is socially lynched if the discussion contradicts the anti-white narrative, which it will if you say anything um, about any truths about climate change. Climate change is, by the way, a very clever reframing, because it used to be global cooling, global warming, which was um, um, easily, uh, um, you know, debatable and easily defeated. But now climate change, I mean, if you object to that, you're just exposing yourself as someone who just doesn't understand how the world works, the physical world, because climate has been changing from the time when there was no life on Earth 4 billion years ago. It's always changing. And in fact, we not 10,000 years ago, you could walk to China from Europe because of the Bering Strait that was iced up. So climate is always changing, and that was a clever name that they chose, because now it's no longer just as easy. And but slots, yes.
I just wanted to mention the obvious anti-whiteism that, the methods they use with this climate change or anthropogenic climate change narrative is that the Western countries are manufacturers. They're able to manufacture. They don't manufacture so much anymore, but they are capable, and they use resources and electricity to create things and create well-being and hospitals and research, everything like that. And they also they commute from suburbs because there's white erasure in the cities. There's anti-whiteism that forces suburbia, and then having to drive to work. But the biggest issue is the anti-white narrative on overpopulation is never about non-white countries. It's always about white countries. When they say that there's overpopulation, it's a problem of white people reproducing, and they use that to specifically target white women and say white women should not be reproducing as often. So when I was taking biology 101 in college, they said instead of having babies early, have babies 30 years old. That was their solution to not to lower the population issue. And then you have now that there's anti-white movies saying that you just don't have kids at all, which is disgusting and despicable. And I noticed, just as an anecdote, the biology teacher that I had three girls, three kids, and I went to after office hours. I went to him. I said, "So why do you have three kids if there's an issue with overpopulation that you're teaching in the class?" And he said, "Well, that's because I want to be selectively strong. That's why." So he put natural selection above the anti-white ideology he was teaching anyway. And I think that's one of those moments that always stick with me now when I see the anti-white narrative.
That's interesting, because you would expect because here's my problem with his statement. Because what story is he living in? You need to be the hero in your own story, and he cannot be the hero in his story if his story is that we need to have less white children. So that is interesting. I wouldn't have expected that. Yes, lots.
Yeah, so it was just part of the curriculum that he, I think, had to preach in order to, just be compliant with anti-whiteism. But in actuality, he had three kids, and I asked him why, and that was after hours.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay. So it's the job. He needs to do the job. Okay. Okay. So we were at the white erasure of our Western standard of the scientific method. But let's move on to another aspect of the Pope kissing the eyes. It's the fact that they are hate hoaxing Western kind, not worrying at all about China building new railways into Upper Mongolia, not worrying. I mean, my in-laws were in Taiwan, and they have they have smoke alarms where they would say, okay, this in this area there is heavy smog, so please be aware if you travel there, you know, that you need the yeah. So and that, I mean, Taiwan is not, you know, it's an industrialized nation. But once again, so there's no attention. So surely people must know that, you know, of the smog problem in Taiwan. And it's not like the anti-whites are love Taiwan. Um, but you don't, but they won't use that narrative on Taiwan because it's not meant for them. Anti-whiteism makes no sense in a country where there are no whites. So clearly, the whole environmental movement is anti-white, and that is why it's hands off. It's hands off all non-white countries. This is why the Ganges River can be the world's biggest cesspool, and no one would care. um, yes, so the Pope kissing the eyes is an example of the anti-white narrative. It's an example of exploiting the biospirit of Western kinds. It's an example of white erasure and of hate hoaxing the entire white race. So the Pope, with his kissing the eyes, he touched anti-whiteism on a whole spectrum of points. Biospirit.
Yeah, I was thinking about how the same people who push the climate change hoax business are so often the same people who are pushing for open borders and having the non-white world pour into the West, and which is seemingly a complete contradiction to what they're saying. But as Jason points out, um, anti-whites are always working towards an anti-white outcome. So if you look at the the climate hoax is a part of the um, the anti-white narrative. It's a subset of anti-whiteism. It's working towards harming Western kind and Western civilization, and bringing more non-whites into the West, white erases our countries and harms us. So both of those things are working towards our harm and victimization. Whereas usually when conservatives are pointing this out, they're using it as, oh, look at how they're being contradictory, or how they're not making any sense, or all of these kinds of things. But um, they do make sense when you look at it through the lens of Go Free, because both of those um, situations that they're working towards harm Western kind, harm Western civilization. And that's why they push both of those seemingly contradictory ideas at the same time.
And Biospirit, you reminded me, I think it was you who mentioned the apparent contradiction in the way the climate activists attack Western art. You never see them attack classical Western art that white people care about. It's always, you never see them attack modern art that we don't care about. They always attack classical Western art that reflects our biospirit, that is real Western art, because they know two things. They know that um, that is going to harm us, that is going to cause spiritual harm by damaging our cultural inheritance. And they know we just won't care about modern art because that's not us. That's a foreign biospirit. Welcome to Jason. Um, hands up, Jason, if you want to contribute. Go ahead, Jason.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hans. Biospirit of the West, 100% right about the apparent contradiction that so many people, it's absolutely the conservatives, but it's so funny to find the exact same uh, dullard nature in those who consider themselves race conscious and white sympathetic. They'll say the exact same things. Look at the contradict. Look at the hypocrisy. Look at the double standard. Look at the two-tier policing. These people are clearly, these communities, reservoirs of the low IQ, and they're led by the blind who are as dumb as they are. Obviously, we see here the reality that in both cases you have anti-white outcomes. And Hans pointing out another fantastic point. And we need to have thousands of people hearing the points that you all are sharing and raising, because they're so astute, they're so on the money, they are perfect. You have the anti-whites when they want to harm us, and this is another proof of the Go Free dialogic and everything we teach here. They don't go after, as Hans was just saying, the modern art garbage. They don't go after the so-called art in India or the so-called art in China or the so-called art in Japan. They go after our classical works, the things that are undeniably of our spirit. You can have a white person produce this expression today that they call art because they hijacked the name of what art is, and then they produce expression, and then they sneered everyone who can't see the invisible meaning that they give it after the fact. That's why, by the way, you always see these art aficionados are always desperately searching for the opinions of these named entities in artistic circles, because they don't want to give an opinion that is at variance, not in keeping with one of the people who are supposedly in the know, because there's no way to know what they're about to say about one of these pieces of expression. So they know what they're doing. Anti-whites know exactly what they're doing. They are targeting our expression because targeting our things is harmful to us. I mean, if you take this, the reality of this all the way down to childhood, one child wants to harm another child, but maybe can't physically assault or physically abuse the child, then the attack manifests on the other child's belongings, the books, the book bag, the toys. The child will mar those things. This is just taken all the way up through adulthood, and visible for everyone there who is studying the Go Free dialogic, not just trying to co-opt pieces from us as we see so often, and bring aggrandizement to themselves. Brilliantly articulated. Yeah, they say, well, we want to have a world where there's this less pollution, and then they bring in people massively magnifying their footprint of carbon and waste and use and etc. by being in Western countries and polluting the world. Of course, they're ignoring the other spots of the world. So we have in the midst of all of the deaths, the attacks, the bombings, the assassinations, the shootings, the gang rapes, everything going on in the world to the white race. We just showed this just the other day on one of our gatherings. The effort now in the UK to deconstruct all of our identities in the United Kingdom, Anglo-Saxon, Scottish, Celtic, etc., deconstructing all of these identities. They never existed, they say. It was just a manifestation that they constructed there, socially constructed for these people. So they're not even real. You can't claim this identity and claim some sort of inheritance and origin and etc. You're just nothings. And the Pope has nothing to say about this. The Pope wants to talk about, as Hans was pointing out a little earlier magnificently, another attack on the white race, another attack on Western kind, which brings up a great opportunity for us when we're speaking with others to talk about subsets and superset. the subsets of anti-whiteism are many. This climate change, the climate hoaxers, this is a subset, and we can demonstrate it very easily because, as you all are noting, it's taking place against the white race, undermining the white race, undermining our civilization, harming us directly. And then the climate hoaxers go to our museums, they go to our statues, they go to things that are undeniably of us and not at variance with us, not antithetical to us, as you see with some of these radically anti-white artists. And they go there and destroy those things. They throw paint on those things. These people, by the way, they should be executed for that sort of behavior. You were also talking about and I just want to touch upon these two things real quick, and I'll pass it back so we can keep rolling with this magnificent space. The white males who are self-selecting as well as being discriminated against, self-selecting themselves out of so many different fields, including college altogether. Well, what ends up happening there? Just another little insight, and it's so beautiful that we can bring so many people together and talk about these things from these different perspectives, because all of this is multi-perspectival. And if we apply the lens of Go Free to anti-whiteism, we understand it in that many more facets. And so you have these males, all of these white guys, and what is happening for so many of them is that intuitively they know that they're going to be discriminated against. Intuitively they know that their dues that they pay, the time that they spend studying, the effort that they make to get into the university, to advance in the university, to get the job, to get advancement at whatever job it might be, they intuitively know, the vast majority, that it's not going to work well for them, that they're going to be undermined. But what's happening? They don't have the words for what's happening in the world. They don't know to call it anti-white and anti-whiteism. They don't know how to articulate to their friends and family and prospective mates that I face these struggles in these environments. It's called anti-whiteism. It is inflicted by anti-whites. This is white erasure. I didn't get the promotion because of white erasure. And as a consequence, since they don't know how to articulate this properly, everyone around them views them as quitters, as do-nothings, as laggards, because they won't get themselves up and they won't just go out and make it happen in the world. Everybody's got an opportunity here and you could just go make it happen. Well, that's Bravo Sierra. You can't just go out and make it happen in the Western world if you're a white male. Every single place you turn, you are up against odds that are massively stacked against you. And pardon the expression, but the whiter you are, the whiter you look, the more, especially Germanic, Anglo-Saxon you look, the lighter the features, the harder the discrimination comes down upon you. We saw with the redheaded white people, irrespective of their actual bone structure of their faces, that they've been so excluded from an identity, from a people, and the warmth and strength that provides the individual, that we had that TikTok trend months back where blacks were saying, hey, if you're a redhead, you're one of us now. And these redheads, to the tune of scores and scores, and I made no effort to look them up, so who knows how many actually made these videos, were crying. They were crying in this desperate gratitude of finally they can be a part of a people. Finally, they can be embraced. Finally, they're not this bizarre outcast. That's the world that our brothers and sisters are in, and in particular, the white males who are faced with the identifiers as lazy and laggard and do nothing and quitter. You're just a quitter. Yeah, you go into these environments, and everywhere you turn, it's a hall of mirrors of discrimination against you and persecution and exploitation. You get the extra work that you have to pick up for everybody else on the job. Oh yeah, you got to do that. And when it comes time for the advancement, they're going to be finding a non-white person for the white erasure so that you won't get it. The other thing I wanted to mention was how marvelous of a celebration of these what was it, 4 or 5 gentlemen, heroes, Westmen, men of the West, and sharing of the prize. Absolutely stupendous. And and while we look back and we see our brothers and all that they've created in the world, this nursery room that so many of white females don't appreciate one iota of, that we do everything they can't do, which enables there to be civilization, builds civilization, defends civilization. maintain civilization, keep civilization running, while the females prance around, go hopping from store to store to store with their expendable income, because they're getting the jobs, they're getting the education, they're getting the promotion, they get to be the girl boss, and they can walk around pretending that they're superior to all the girls that enable them to, all the guys that enable them to live in a world that gives them such comfort, that gives them such abundance, that enables them to pretend that they can do it all on their own, which is, of course, Bravo Sierra as well. So we have these white men, and I just want to tell you, we're doing the exact same thing here. Last night, late last night for me, midday for our brothers in Australia, I attended the Australian GFC with Eric, Porridge, Lunder, the crew. It's stupendous. They're getting together constantly. They're talking about the next magnificent video. They're planning the groundwork that they're going to make. These guys are true champions. So while we're talking here, they're talking there, and we're making it happen. The only other thing I just want to say that comes to mind really quickly, when it comes to celebrating some of our heroes, maybe one of those heroes that, if we haven't celebrated this champion yet, is Warner Forsman. And he was a German. I remember years back, my father had to have some stents put in his heart. And so I went and I looked up, where did this come from? How did this get developed? Who figured this out? How is my dad going to be saved? And of course, it was a white surgeon in Germany who decided, through theory, through his study, through his cognitive abilities to be able to hold these three-dimensional spaces in that creative part of the cerebral cortex up at the front part of the forehead, he devised this mechanism to be able to go in the vein all the way up to the heart, and said it could be done, and wanted to run the test. And all of his peers said, no, you can't run that test. That's going to kill somebody if you run this test and you run this wire up into their heart. Well, Forsman decided he'll do it on himself. And he got an orderly to help him one night. And as the story goes, they stayed late. Forsman went down to the OR after everything was closed in the middle of the night to meet up with his assistant. When he got to the OR, one of his colleagues, another surgeon, had found out that he was going to do this to himself and tried to stop him. And they had a fist fight, and Forsman won the fight. And the other surgeon said, fine, you can kill yourself, and left. Forsman opened the vein on his arm and ran the wire up into his heart to prove that it could be done, took it out, sewed it shut himself. That's the white race, buddy. Females better start learning to appreciate it. We better come together as a people to put an end to the victimization. And when we do, that's the end of anti-whiteism in the West. But I'll pass it back. Loving what everybody has to share today.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, I haven't heard of Werner Forsman, but I have an anecdote to tell. Our pediatrician, a white female doctor, she every time because as new parents, we are concerned about every little thing. And every time we run to her, she would say, this is totally normal. In a calming voice, she would say, this is totally normal. So at some point, I started to distrust the fact that everything's always normal. Because, I mean, maybe that's all she knows. And so I got a little bit worried, you know. It's my first child, and you know, if the mechanic always says your car is fine, then you're starting to wonder, okay, it can't be, you know, maybe this mechanic just doesn't know what he's doing. But the one time, as she listened to his heart, he was about I think 3 or 4 years old. She listened to his heart, and she looks up and says, this is not normal. And of course now I'm you know, what I wished for came true, and I didn't really want that to come through. But what happened was a certain percentage of children, they are born. So when the child is born, there's an opening between the left and right ventricles, because when the baby is in the womb, the blood doesn't need to go to the lungs. But then after birth, that normally that closes. But what sometimes happens is um, it doesn't close completely, and then you can hear it through the stethoscope. You can hear the rush of the blood through the opening between the left and the right ventricle. Um, and But the solution was so simple. I was quite impressed. They put a little. It isn't even an operation. They open a vein and they put a little spiral. It only has 5 turns, and it's like a pipe cleaner, but smaller. And they turn it 2.5 turns into the opening, and then what happens? The blood slows down, and just that slowing down of the blood causes it to clot, and then the thing closes and problem solved. It was such an elegant solution with minimal intervention, and it was just so amazing. I mean, I wouldn't have thought of that. Just slowing down the blood will cause it to clot, and then the thing closes. Slots.
Jason had mentioned about dating and mentioning the obstacles we face as white men to, whoever we're talking with on the other side of the table. But we all know exactly, and maybe Jason can speak to this after, but we all know exactly what an anti-white woman's thinking when we say we face obstacles as white men. They're thinking you're fragile. They're thinking that you're weak and that you're not a good mate. And I want to also hypothetically switch the roles here. If a white woman said that she was facing anti-whiteism, what a white man's response would be. Usually an anti-white man, even if he's anti-white, half of them at least would still not immediately say that you're weak. They would not say immediately that you're evil. But the other way around, it's 100%, 70% of women, even if they're not like vagues and you mention it, they're just going to consider you weak at that point. And it's not going to work out well with them in that regard. I just wanted to bring up the MC for that. Maybe in case anyone's listening, there is no without injury. And now it's not going to work on a lot of women if you say that. They have instincts and they use instincts, and so that's what they go by, no matter what you say. And the subconscious works on the biospirit. The anti-white, pathogens work on the instincts of a person, and the instinct is fear of social lynching, fear of whatever consequences of anti-whiteism working. But if you have a particularly pristine woman on the other side, and you can use that MC, maybe they have more intellect than other women. They're more pristine than, you could use that. I also wanted to mention the other thing by Jason, which was, I forget the exact thing that was mentioned, but it was white erasure. It was about white erasure of our history, our norms, the sculptures, what's attacked is our culture, our people. And I wanted to bring up a post I made in January this year. It was the concept of an indisputably white man having a legacy that includes any timeless and unimpeachably positive contribution is already considered a marvel to the average population fed with anti-whiteism. And I had brought this up regarding Claire de Lune by Claude Debussy. If they're still going to label him as a heretic to anti-whiteism, the idea that he is somehow innocent of heresy to anti-whiteism is just completely and utterly bewildering to the average person today. Any sort of white person having some kind of positive contribution without there being an evil associated with it is considered completely bewildering, and they're incredulous about it. And that's just a fact of the anti-whiteism today, is that they have this idea that there is no innocence in our people, and that's what white guilt is, and the power of no white guilt. Yeah.
Hello?
Just the who is this? District Mimi, just
I want to talk to
hold
the
on, I'll
one.
give you a chance.
Hello?
Hello, just keep quiet for a bit.
Okay. I want to
I'll
talk to
give
the
you a chance
white,
to speak now.
anti-white.
Okay, so you can, okay, so just be aware, we focus on the well-being of white people here. So you can talk about
Nah,
anti-whiteism.
honkies, rednecks. Hey, y'all better act like y'all got some sense, mother. Hey,
Just turn her off. Jesus Christ.
She's gone.
Thank you.
um, okay. All right, so let's get back to, okay, so I shared in the Jumbotron far left. This was just a funny image that exposes modern art as the totally soulless, non-white expression, because there's two white children in an art gallery, and what are they interested in? They would rather look at the rats in the behind the grate than this modern art that is displayed. But the article I want to talk about next. So I related this before, and as I related the story, I had the feeling that the audience was basically shaking their heads, because the story that I related was of a family member of mine who who so just some background. In South Africa, the doctors, anyone who qualifies in the medical industry, has to work for 2 years for the state, and this is a form of anti-white victimization, where white doctors are forced to go in, and it's truly, I get the feeling that white female doctors are sent to the most dangerous places, to be alone, because totally white erased environments that they are sent to, sometimes holes in the ground, where they have to go to these clinics, and then they have to work for 2 years in this environment before they are allowed to practice. So my brother-in-law, he has to go to this far off, this remote place, and his patient, was not able to help himself. His patient, Julia, can you mute, please? Thank you. his patient couldn't help himself. He was on a heart lung machine. So he had to be fed through a feeding tube. Now, my brother-in-law has other patients in other places, so he can't be there the whole time. So I think it was a few days, and he came back to the patient, and they never fed the patient. The patient died. They never fed him. And as I told the story, I had the feeling that, you know, people who are listening won't believe that this is not, you know. And now today I see this story. It's in the jumbotron, second from the left. A man with Downs was admitted with a broken hip, easily fixed with surgery. They marked him down as nil by mouth, okay, for 9 days. It's not that he couldn't talk. It's that he has a disability. He can't explain what's the problem, and he starved to death. And this is the NHS. So uh, at the time, it was earlier this year. I said, as incredible as this sounds, this is coming to the West. This is coming to your country, and now I'm reading this. It's a very similar story to this incredible, um, horrible tale that I told, and here it is. Um, yes, so this is the white erasure of our Western standards right here. Biospirit.
That's very sad, and it makes me very concerned as our population ages, and I'm in the baby boom generation, so um, I'm always thinking about these types of things where um, you're in a hospital environment, and if you don't have an advocate, someone who is looking out for your best interest, who knows what's going to happen to you. Um, when my father was in a uh, rest home kind of environment, I went every single day because they say that if somebody comes and checks on them every single day, then the people who work there will treat them better. And it's really concerning to me that our people are going to be being cared for, and I put that in quote marks, by people who don't have our Western standards and will, um, just as soon starve them to death or leave them in a puddle of their own muck and not do anything and just walk right by them with complete indifference. Um, this is the kind of future we're setting up for our people if we don't put an end to anti-whiteism and if we don't put an end to white erasure. So thank you for bringing this to our attention. Hans, thank you.
Yes, and I can just quickly relate another experience that I had. I had a central line into my aorta, and I had an allergic reaction to the plaster that they used. So they had to change the plaster to another one. And so I was standing up. My wife was next to me, and the non-white, white erased uh, nurse came. She starts peeling off the plaster, and then so the wound is open now, and this is the aorta. So you need to be quick because if germs get into there, you are in trouble. So the nurse disappears around the corner into the hall, and I'm thinking, okay, she just went to fetch a swab or something. 15 minutes later, I tell my wife, go and look where she's gone. The shift changed and she went home. That's and there were no consequences. Slots.
I wanted to mention how I love the use of white erase nurse rather than protectee or charge of anti-whiteism or some kind of beneficiary of anti-whiteism. I like the concept there instead of anything else, because you're not going to call the nurse anti-white, but saying that her position was white erased and she's a consequence of white erasure, that was really well put. And I think I could apply it in so many other instances. If we say that their role is a white erased nurse, a white erased electrician, white erased everything, that we're putting in the concept that it was a consequence of anti-whiteism, that there's incompetence in that role. So I really like that, Hans. I wanted to mention regarding Down syndrome. It just brought to mind I wanted to address some white negativity of the white negatives, who are always advocating violence just as some kind of solution to anti-whiteism, which is completely false. But I want them to think about, we as a people have sympathy for, and we treat, and we dote, and we also just support anyone who has a disability in our countries, anyone who's facing injury or harm. We have compassion for. We don't say, oh, you're useless and now we're going to kill you. That's just not our people. And when you're using the same language of, we're just going to murder non-whites or something, or something like that, similarly, it's not going to resonate with our biospirit. It's not part of us. It's not us. It's part of the anti-white narrative, which says that white people are defined by violence, which is completely incorrect. So this idea that we're just going to murder or violence our way to being a pristine people and being supportive of each other and having an identity is not going to happen. There's solutions. There's very non-violent solutions. Some of those who have disabilities choose not to reproduce just because they don't want to pass that on to a child. And then there's also the non-violent. Women can choose not to reproduce with someone who is disabled. They can just make that decision. Our people find that acceptable. It's a form of eugenics that is voluntary. It's not killing or defaming anyone. So there's this idea that we have to be violent in order to succeed in defeating anti-whiteism. It's not going to resonate with our people. It's not going to resonate with the good people of our race. And you need to keep in mind that the good people of our race will respond to justice, the idea that our people deserve. We do need to defeat anti-whiteism. We need to say, everyone deserves dignity, including Western kind, and that should not be controversial at all. And so that's the method to make sure our people stop being anti-white.
Thanks, Lord. So you spoke then a memory when you talked about vulnerability. It's definitely, there's a biospiritual aspect to caring about our most vulnerable. And this is something that I don't see elsewhere. If you look at sable antelope, will kill a member of the herd that that's injured. Um, um, Baboons. I mean, I know about baboons because one of the farms of in my family, there are large, really large troops of baboons. They they respond to weakness. They if you show the slightest weakness, they will exploit it to the max. They respond positively to high levels of brutality. That's what they respond to. The moment they see weakness, they exploit. Another example is I visited a wolf sanctuary. So what happened in South Africa is people would get these illegally import these pet wolves because they're very cute when they are puppies, and then um, their biospirit asserts itself when they become adult. Then they're no longer dogs. So this wolf sanctuary was for these rogue um, wolf pets that the people don't know how to handle. And I spoke to the keeper, and he showed me that the there's a omega in the camp, and the omega is the one who is bullied by the rest. And he said what they tried to do was they would take the omega out of the camp, but the wolves would immediately select a new omega to bully. It is the strangest thing. So there is something about us that we or that's something that I picked up, that we there's something about vulnerable members of our people that elicit, protection, and not only among females, males as well. So it's you're totally correct. People who think that, oh, let's just wipe out the downs, they are useless. This is absolutely not. uh, I question whether those people are white. Let's just put it like that. Julia.
So I'm just going to say it's just another example of this type of soulless behavior. Again, someone who just doesn't care, and I see it all the time. And you can tell just from looking in their eyes that they just don't care. It's like there's no one home.
I sometimes think that when you make a deal with a devil, you are you are slowly being hollowed out, like one of these spider eggs that hatches inside, or the one of these wasp eggs that hatches inside the insect and eats it out from the inside. And when we um, in the future, when we have white well-being, these people, when you remove anti-whiteism, there would be nothing left. There would just be empty space. Um, that was it. That was the points that I wanted to discuss. Let me quickly went through the list. So we went through the 4 chats, real chats, who discovered who said you couldn't be smart and attractive at the same time. Um, then Paul Golding, who was so relieved that the terrorist was a Muslim because he wouldn't know how to discuss the situation if for the well-being of white people, if the terrorist uh, was inside the anti-white narrative, if he was a white male. Of course, we would just say, look at the reaction. This is the relevant thing, not who did what. The reaction of the regime is always inside the anti-white narrative. And if it supports the anti-white narrative, that incident would be a hate hoax. You would see it blasted all over the sky in every Western country. Every white person on earth will know about that. I mean, I know about George Floyd, okay, but only because of this community do I know names like Emily Jones, like Lula David, like Cash Gernan. These are names that our people don't know about because in an anti-white society, the ritualistic rape and murder of white children are hush crimes. Then we went to the Pope who kissed a block of ice. Um, and whether that is villainy signaling anti-whiteism, peacocking anti-whiteism, or preening anti-whiteism, you can decide for yourself. And then the Downs patient who died of hunger in the hospital. Yeah, not much to say about that. And then I just posted a message on the far left. Two little white girls in an art gallery, and what's most interesting to them? The rats, because white erasure. That's not biospiritually Western. There's nothing beautiful about modern art. Sorry if anyone disagrees. Then you need to reevaluate your appreciation and your discernment. Julia.
Yeah, anyone who likes modern art is just wrong. Sorry. You just have no taste if you like modern art. I was just going to say that regarding intelligence and good looks, those are actually correlated. It's not a super strong correlation, but it is a positive one. So, yeah, this idea that um, you're unlikely to be both attractive and intelligent is not true. It's like this mean pathogen that blondes are dumb. Um, no, in general, positive traits tend to cluster together. All the positive traits tend to cluster together. So height, or what we would deem desirable, endurance, health, uh, attractiveness, intelligence, good personality, etc.
Yes, and I mean, we see in Hollywood movies always that the smart, if it's a white person who is smart, a white male, he's usually this real, he would be the omega in every school. Um, and this is totally artificial. It's you are completely correct. I mean, Plato was called Plato because of his broad shoulders. he wa- he wasn't a nerdy little twink. Um, so yes, completely correct. It's this it's and I think computer games contributes to this because when you create a character in a computer game, often you have to sacrifice wisdom or intelligence if you want strength and agility. And this is totally false. You can have strength, agility, wisdom, and intelligence. You can have it all. You don't have to compromise. Um, so that's it for today. I'm just going to ask around. Let's go to slots. Final thoughts.
Yeah, thanks for the space. I was glad I was able to speak to some things, and hope you all have a good rest of your Saturday.
Thanks, lots. Jason.
Epic space. Thank you so much for holding it. Thank you for everybody contributing your insights. Everybody that has talked has had something brilliant to say, and I really appreciate every one of those perspectives with the use of the Go Free dialogic, a dialogic, a practice that is illuminatory in so many ways. And we only begin to scratch the surface when we have these kinds of conversations, really learning from each other and how we can use the practice to improve our lives, improve ourselves, and help our brothers and sisters go free of anti-whiteism. It's so huge and so exciting. It's a shame. It's a shame that our friend here that showed up, she went straight to the anti-white slurs, but they really don't get a lot of time on the phone in prison. So, it's just, it's one of them things. She probably had to get the slurs in before they took her off the phone. But we have a epic gathering coming up tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure that you all are there. We'll be on all of the normal platforms. And one thing I just want to mention that we're going to be celebrating tomorrow is an absolute out of the park home run grand slam in the real world in work by Homeless Bear. You wouldn't even believe the practice. He implemented it perfectly in this environment. Of course, we're going to be changing some of the details to protect the innocent, but he implemented it perfectly and it worked magnificently, as it will for everyone across the West. So we're going to be celebrating Homeless Bear. Make sure you're there, and we'll chat with you all at that time. But thanks so much, Hans, for holding the space.
It's a great pleasure. Julia.
Yeah. Sorry, I was too tired to contribute more, but always a pleasure to listen to everyone and feel the sense of community that I really do feel more and more with every space. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day. Until next time.
It sounds like I woke you from sleep. Have a nice sleep tight. Bye, Spirit.
Yeah, for a final thought, I was wanting to say thank you for bringing up that Paul Golding thing, because when I first came to Go Free, I was kind of in that same place as Golding is, where um, it's looking for someone to blame and putting all of the focus and attention on other people and their warts. And I did that in spades. I got sucked into the anti-Muslim, anti-Islam stuff, and I must have read 100 books, and I know everything upside up backwards and forwards about them, and I now think to myself, why did I bother with that? It's so I don't need to know any of that. The only thing I need to know is if someone is anti-white, and once you get to there, you realize that you can let go of this misplaced hatred of other peoples. It's not that all of those people are something. It's that you're angry that you are being victimized on the basis of your birth, and that anti-whiteism is the culprit. And so thank you for bringing that up, Hans. Great space, and look forward to next time.
I must tell you, one time when Jason said, all those books about philosophy and this and that, you don't need to read any of that. No, I won't say that was the clincher, not at all, but definitely I was so relieved, because I had this long list of stuff that I had to read whenever I get serious about putting my weight behind a movement for the well-being of white people. And that was what I needed to hear. You don't need to read all those philosophers. Morality is much simpler than that, and understanding the tools to fight the psychological battles is where where it will be won or lost. Okay, it's thanks everyone. Let's see if I can. Okay, this has been the Saturday edition of Shade Tree White Wellbeing NWG Space. We meet here at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on X. We practice the Go Free lexicon and concepts as developed by Jason Kierner, Snow White Killed himself. You can find him here on X as Snow White Killed NWG, elsewhere simply No White Killed, and on the web at nowhitekilled.org. I want to thank each and every one of the speakers and all of you who showed up to listen. You all make this space possible by bringing your diverse skills and intelligence here for all of us to share. Without all of your participation as speakers or listeners, it would just be my handsome self. Thanks again. I truly appreciate you all. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening. I love you all and hope to see you all tomorrow. Bye.